asking a couple of questions. So for those of you that have been waiting to ask Al, you can go ahead and put your hand up. I'll come around with the microphone so he can hear you.
Hi, Al.
Hi.
I'm really interested in the work that you did with Raimonto. You know, his philosophy was about freeing people from the tyranny of the alphabet, you know.
Yes.
And so I wonder how you can compare and contrast your use of letter and language with that of Raimonto.
Raimonto was about like that whole arming the letter and stuff like that. I don't, my letters are merely vehicles for, you know, like they serve a more practical function. I'm not, I mean, Ramel was a wonderful guy and everything, but I don't theorize about each letter so deeply.
It was more of a graphic approach.
Well, he made those beautiful letters, and they were but it was very, I mean, he had this whole philosophy of arming the letter, and it was a tough one to get. I always describe Raimonto as the Sun Ra of graffiti hip-hop culture. He was out there.
Quick question. When did you recognize that you had a distinct style? Like all these paintings, I can say, all made by the same person. When did you get there, and when did you recognize that? Is that
Distinct style?
Yeah, like you know, distinctly.
Probably in high school of art and design, because I went to the school I went to was a very strong graffiti school. It was one of the core New York City graffiti schools. A lot of big time, you know, big name graffiti artists came out of there, and you borrow. I mean, you don't just, it doesn't just come from inside you. You borrow whatever you see and you come up with something new. But I was trying to, I mean, I definitely was trying to do stuff that was different from other people. I think it was at least trying to be distinct, you know what I mean?
I mean, I grew up in it was my 20s, in the East Village in the 90s. So you had Alex Arcadia, you had all the clowns. I saw it. I lived in, like, Lou Reed used to live in my apartment, you know, before I knew her. So I lived on top of the Pyramid Club. So I saw it all, right? But when I see you, I see the other artists, you have a distinctive style. It's you. It says you.
Thank you very much.
And that's a really great accomplishment.
Thank you very much.
I was just wondering, like, how's life going right now, like, with everything you said about, like, coming up and everything you struggled with back then? It's like, you seem like a happy ending almost. I'm trying to see if I should allow myself.
I hope it's not the ending yet, but I mean, life is, you know what? Life is good for the most part, but it's life. You know, every day you got stuff that you have to deal with. You know, but I'm equipped.
You happy?
I can deal with life.
You happy?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy. I mean, yeah, happy is it is, but it's all fleeting. There's the happy, and then there's difficulties in life. So you're not happy 100% of the time, but yes, generally speaking, there's an overall happiness that exists. But there's always like pains in the ass, like finding a new apartment.
Yeah, that's what I'm going through right now. Thank you.
I just had a question about, like, what's your opinion about conforming to, like, other people's styles when it comes to tags and, you know?
Well, I think that's the norm. I think that people tend to do that as a flock. You know, people. There's fewer leaders than there are followers. And it's always been like that, and it will always be that way. I really believe that. Because if we were all leaders, damn, this place would be like a hell of a place to be. I mean, all leaders.
See, with me, like, it's always good to focus on, like, design and, like, innovation always.
I think that's
all I'm going to say about that. One more question. It's a costume. You can tie my pants after this. I got Cornbread and Jesus Saves and a bunch of other old school writers.
I'll sign your pants, just keep them on. Leah.
So my sister is an art teacher. She's in Maine, and she's asking on Instagram Live, what would Al say to the young kids these days that want to express themselves with art?
Well, I mean, hopefully that's never going to end. keep, you know, people expressing themselves with art. My folks, well, my folks were you know, they come from a culture where, or a time and a culture where something like that is kind of frivolous. But they never denied me, you know, don't let him draw, or oh, that's stupid, or anything like that. My father used to drive me to 120, from the Lower East Side to 125th Street, like on twice a week, so that I could go to an art class. I mean, you know, why not, you know? And he did that out of love. So I hope that all kids have that opportunity, you know?
I know in Florida, there's a lot of schools that stop teaching art.
I know. That's
crazy.
But in New York, we had something similar for a long time, where they defunded art programs and stuff like that, which is kind of like, it's not really, that's not progress. That is not a progressive thing, you know? I think it's essential to have, I mean, culture is just, it's necessary, you know? It's necessary. Music, art, dance, anything, any self-expression is completely necessary. It's not an additional thing, you know?
You have mentioned art parties that you have attended in the 70s and 80s. I was wondering if you have met someone at that time who you thought that wouldn't play a role in your career, or who you wouldn't meet, but then eventually met again maybe 10 or 20 years after.
The truth is that when I was going to art parties as a young person, I was not careering. I was trying to get loaded.
I know, but like, were there any other people that you were like, you wouldn't expect to meet in 10 years that you met at the beginning of your career?
I think that's happened, yeah, a couple of times in my life, where I re-met people and somehow made a connection for some sort of beneficial, you know. But I think that's just the way paths, you know, people, you know, the way it moves with just life, you know. I mean, but once again, there's also a lot of people you'll never see again as well. That's what this is about. Names and faces fade as time passes. You meet a lot of people. As a New Yorker, you meet a lot of people. And some you never see again, some remain in your life, you know, which is a wonderful thing to have old friends. I have a friend who I'm still in contact with, who I went to kindergarten with. That was a long time ago. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Hey, Al. Hey.
Hi.
When you go through your old route, you talk about from Tribeca all the way down to Lower East Side, where do you see the state of graffiti and street art right now?
You know what happens is this, and this is not to put anything down. It's just that I was involved with that culture at this point in my life for 50 some odd years. And what happens is you become a little bit numb to it, because a lot of it looks alike, and it's just not that stimulating. But that's me. There's other guys from my generation who like Eric Deal, who still has a website, 149thstreet.com or something like that, and he still follows graffiti, and he can talk about it, which is important to have those people, because he can tell you stuff from 1974 and tell you and be, you know, and show how it relates to stuff like now. But at this point, I mean, it's become so like, you see so much of it that you're almost blind to it. Like, I mean, I do see it out of the corner of my eye. Like today, I was noticing. I noticed this one thing, and I was like, oh shit, that looks like a puzzle piece. The guy's letter, because it had these jagged, like a round thing, and it looked like a puzzle piece to me. So I did notice that, and I mean, it's like earlier today, just walking past the gate.
Little things here.
Yeah, so I guess it's the details that you do notice. Cool. Thanks.
All right, we may have time for one more question if anyone is just really, yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that you kind of look amazing, Al, and it's really nice to be here with you. As a former alumni, also art and design. how do you compare city as school and
You can't compare it because art and design was a very organized vocational school. And although I'm still in contact with the people at City as a school, it's changed like drastically. It used to be like a hippie school, like total, like, you know, people smoking weed and coming in and out. And it was a little very loose. I mean, but I did have some good opportunities to I mean, like I ended up working at Madison Square Garden then through that. I did a bunch of really cool stuff that was very, you know, New York stuff. Like we had an art class. I think I spoke about this before, where it was Sylvia Milgram, who was an art educator in the New York public school system. She was pretty well known. We had her taught art history basically, and you'd be talking about the Guernica, but you'd be standing in front of Guernica, which is, you know what, for a bunch of kids from the city, that's kind of that's a real privilege. That's a privilege, because you're like, who else? The kids in third world countries are not going to have that. Even though you're from the projects, you're still able to experience that. You know, I mean, that was cool, but it wasn't. It doesn't compare to like the vocational training that you would get like a school like art and design, music and art. You know, it's a different. It's apples and oranges, but both of those experiences were beneficial and life-lasting for me, because I still remember stuff from like Greenberg and those teachers that we had back then in art and design. They taught you good habits. You can't teach somebody how to be an artist, but you can teach them good habits and technique, etc., etc. You know, it's not like, I think being an artist is the way you perceive things and the way you look at stuff. You know.
All right, well, I think that this is a really good ending point, because it's a privilege for all of us to be here with Aldiaz and to be able to hear his story, and also to have that communication and that dialogue with the artist. So as we finish up, as I mentioned, we do have merch on the other side of the wall there, so feel free to purchase a book, a hat, whatever it is that you like, and Al will be over here at this table ready to do some dedications. If you would like to purchase one of the prints as well, you can see myself or my team. We have Becerra over there standing by the tiles, which is something else that's unique that we didn't have in the gallery until today that we're pretty excited about. So check those out, talk to Becerra about that. Go ahead and talk to Diamond about the merchandise there. But it's really nice to have something to take home with you just to commemorate today and being able to communicate directly with the artist. So thank you for sharing your story. It was a pleasure getting to know more about you and your artwork and your career, and we're excited to see what you do next.